Donald spent Saturday complaining on the internet. Listen to this. 6 hours, 52 posts. The president attacked the Pope. He posted his own face on Mount Rushmore and a made-up Trump Peace Prize. He announced 3 times America's back, and he assured an increasingly concerned public he's in excellent health. And when not posting, he's been trying to rob us. Have you seen it?
That was Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. Welcome to the 4th hour of Morning Joe, just after 6 a.m. on the West Coast, 9 a.m. in the East. Thanks for joining us. We have a packed hour ahead. Alongside, we have co-host of the Weekend Primetime on MS Now, Elise Jordan, and co-founder and CEO of All In Together, Lauren Leader. Lauren's also a contributor to the Notice Perspectives column and the author of El Lead Her, I get it, on Substack. El Lead Her. As Senator Ossoff did just mention, President Trump spent most of his Saturday posting on his Truth Social platform. Trump's first post at 11:15 a.m. was a more than 700-word rant about a federal judge who on Friday ruled that the Kennedy Center must remove Trump's name from that building. Over the next 14 hours, Trump posted more than 60 times, finally ending at just after 1 a.m. Sunday morning. The president's social media spree included political memes attacking his perceived political rivals, memes about crime under his administration compared to that of former President Biden, multiple AI-generated pictures, including 2 separate posts of Trump on Mount Rushmore, and at least 3 posts with George Washington, one of which was the 2 men on horses near a Trump-branded NASCAR vehicle with the Washington Monument and the White House in the background, and for good measure, the space shuttle flying over them. Perfectly normal stuff. Meanwhile, President Trump is now planning to personally headline the White House-backed concert on the National Mall, marking the nation's 250th birthday. After most musical performers, including Milli Vanilli, backed out of the June 24th event due to political concerns. Over the weekend, Trump took to social media, mocking the artists who've canceled, calling them overpriced and boring. Trump suggested replacing them with a giant MAGA rally instead with, you guessed it, himself as the headliner. Trump stated that he is the, quote, #1 attraction anywhere in the world, and that he gets much larger audiences than Elvis in his prime. But good news. At least 2 of the planned artists have not pulled out of the event. They include Flo Rida and Vanilla Ice. So, Elise, it is a great shock.
All right, stop, collaborate, and listen.
But there, we're done.
Let me at it. Let me at it.
That's it. I mean, Vanilla, he's still there.
I mean, he's still got it. Vanilla Ice, that can hold up the whole operation. Everyone else can drop out.
Nothing says America.
Nothing says America.
Like
That's
Vanilla
amazing.
Ice on the 250th anniversary.
So, jokes aside, though, this is, I mean, yet another moment, which should be, we had Walter Isaacson on before. He's done a lot of thinking and writing about these nations' anniversaries, and including this one. It should be a moment of unity, about a celebration of what was, but also the promise of what could be. For President Trump, it's about one thing and one thing only, himself.
Well, this could be easy. This doesn't have to be so hard. It is not hard to bring the country together to celebrate our 250th anniversary. But Trump wants to use it to establish patriotism as a Trump MAGA trait and divide the rest of the country. And anyone who's not with him, he wants to brand as unpatriotic. So that's really, I think, the narrative that he's trying to drive with this. But instead, he's creating and curating an event that no one cares about or is going to watch because the programming is going to be so subpar.
That's true, Lauren, but also we should note it's not just nothing unifying about it. There's nothing joyful about it. For Trump, everything he's saying is angry. He is just angry at this whole proceedings.
Right now, the only thing joyful are the memes on the internet of other musical acts that have declined, including like the trees from Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance. I mean, the internet has gone bananas.
I was fond of the Enrico Palazzo, the opera singer from Naked Gun. Leslie
Correct.
Nielsen.
There's so many that actually, like, if you need a good laugh, just go down this rabbit hole. I spent more time on the weekend looking at those than I should have. But look, no, I mean, Elise is right. It is ultimately kind of tragic for the country. And I think about the anniversary in 1985, when Reagan was president, and they did this like spectacular sort of country uniting celebration, thousands of boats in New York Harbor for this like extraordinary, fireworks display. I mean, there are ways to do this. He could have invited all the living presidents to Washington. And by the way, this thing about paying the artists, guess who doesn't get paid to come perform for American, celebrations? It's artists, because they come to contribute their time for a greater cause. And like, that's really, it's just so indicative of this president. He can't even find like these minimally, such low-hanging fruit to bring the country together. He can't do it.
And we should note, it was Gerald Ford in 1976 who had the tall ships in New York Harbor, not only unifying, but like it was good for him. Politics, It was good politics for him.
And then again, 10 years later.
And then this Trump is obviously not taking that opportunity, and the celebrations kick off, of course, a week from Saturday, Flag Day, his birthday, with that UFC
But Americans
fight
are the
on White House
losers
lawn.
in this, right? I mean, I think that's really, this is not about Trump. This is about us. And, to that very good point from Jim Vanderhei earlier about just like the anxiety and the stress in the country, like this really could have been a great moment. It could have been a time to bring people together. He's not interested.
Well, just like the World Cup also
Yes.
happening at the same time. And it could be something that we're introducing all of these visitors to our country
we are.
about, what we stand for and a lovely display. But instead, they get to see the worst of American partisanship and divisiveness.
It all gets Trumpified. So as we mentioned a moment ago, a federal judge has blocked President Trump from adding his name to the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, and as well as temporarily halted the administration's plans to close that venue for a 2-year renovation. In a ruling that came down on Friday, the judge appeared critical of Trump's effort to rebrand the building after himself, writing in part, "Congress gave the Kennedy Center its name, and only Congress can change it." The move drew increased intense scrutiny and criticism from Trump, who took to Truth Social to say he'd work with Congress to give back the responsibilities of overseeing the center, writing, "Unless I am free to do what I do better than anyone else, bring the institution back physically, financially, and artistically, I have no interest in continuing what could only be a hopeless journey into Neverland." Maybe Millie, it's just, I mean, Trump also attacked the judge personally on social media while tying the ruling to other recent legal setbacks, including the Supreme Court's rejection of his tariffs in February. We should note, of course, the Kennedy Center is a memorial to the slain president. And that's why it's an act of Congress. Trump can't just slap his name on it. That's what the federal judge said. Meanwhile, that all comes as a different judge has blocked the Trump administration from moving forward with its $1.776 billion anti-weaponization fund, at least for now. The ruling came Friday after a January 6th prosecutor and other plaintiffs sued to stop the fund. They argued that the money is essentially an unauthorized political rewards program designed to benefit Trump's allies with little public oversight. The next hearing in the case set for June 12th. Let's now bring in former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Arenberg. First, Dave, big picture. This does seem like, especially in recent weeks, more and more members of the judiciary are saying not so fast to President Trump, that even though Congress has largely abdicated its powers, the federal bench has not. And on Friday, he was delivered a couple of stinging rebukes.
Yeah. Jonathan, federal judges don't like being told what to do. It's different for Congress. Congress depends on the president, especially if you're a Republican, to avoid any primary challenger. But when it comes to members of the judiciary, they've got lifetime appointments. And so it really doesn't matter when Trump goes after them. They wear the black robes. You have to stand up when they walk into the room. They carry that gavel. So they don't like to be told that they have no power. And so I'm not surprised they're pushing back. And we've seen that from judges appointed by Democrats and Republicans alike, including from President Trump. And Trump will go after them. But what are the stages of grief? You've got denial and then anger and then acceptance. And it seems like Trump is now at acceptance because he's saying that, fine, he's going to let Congress deal with the Kennedy Center. In fact, he's going to cancel his concert. And so I think it's a good thing for our democracy because the legislative branch, Article 1, has abdicated its role, as you correctly said. They have self-emasculated. But in the meantime, one branch of government has stood up and provided the guardrails that our democracy needs, and that is the judiciary.
So, Dave, let's go a little further. Set aside the Kennedy Center. Trump, at least for now, appears to be throwing in the towel. But let's talk about that weaponization fund. And also, remember, that comes with these possible IRS protections for Trump, his family, his business going forward. Does the administration have any recourse here that you see to revive that?
They can try. Now, the friendliest court for them has been the U.S. Supreme Court. Their 6-3 conservative majority. I'm not so sure, though, that Chief Justice Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, who are the swing justices there, are going to play ball for Trump on this one because it is so out of the ordinary. I mean, it's so egregious, and it just reeks of corruption. And the fact is that the Department of Justice, when they were supposed to oppose this request for all this money and for all these things that Trump wanted, they didn't even file a motion. They didn't even file a single motion in response to Trump's lawsuit. Instead, they just capitulated and negotiated this deal that does look like insider dealing, and it's something that the courts are going to have to reckon with. I think that as long as this can be postponed until there's a new Congress, then I think it's not going to happen.
So, Dave, lawmakers say that former Attorney General Pam Bondi attempted to distance herself from the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files during her testimony before the House Oversight Committee at the end of last week. In a closed-door meeting on Friday, Bondi, who was fired back in April, declined to answer questions from lawmakers about Trump's involvement in anything connected to the documents and told committee members her former deputy, now acting AG Todd Blanche, that it was he who was responsible for determining which documents would be released, along with repeatedly punting to FBI Director Kash Patel. Democrats say they'll subpoena those two officials next. Bondi also conceded the documents released had redaction errors, which included victims' names and other identifying information, but said the department, in her words, has been committed to accountability and transparency. The interview followed months of negotiations between lawmakers and the former AG, who faced rare bipartisan criticism over the uneven and delayed release of the files that were tied to the convicted sex offender and New York financier. So, Dave, what are some of your thoughts about what we have learned from this closed-door hearing? And is anything sort of worrying in terms of what you think the kind of questions Blanche and Patel may face?
Well, one big takeaway for me, Jonathan, was that former Attorney General Bondi said that Ghislaine Maxwell should die in prison. She previously said the same thing back in February to the House Judiciary Committee, but this time she also reportedly added that Maxwell should not be pardoned. You remember, Trump has never closed the door for a pardon for Maxwell. He seems to hold it over her head while her defense lawyer continues to lobby for it. So even though she's a former AG, I think her opinion on this matters to the president. And I'm not surprised that she apparently said that Todd Blanche had been Trump's point person on the Epstein matter. We began to see Blanche as the public face of this after the kerfuffle involving the right-wing bloggers who held up those binders without any real new information in it. Also, there was the controversy when the former AG mistakenly said that the Epstein list was on her desk instead of the file. That's what she meant. And it was Todd Blanche who interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell for 9 hours outside her prison cell in Tallahassee and reportedly ordered or at least approved her move to a minimum security facility in Texas where sex offenders are not supposed to be. So I think it's right to say that if you want more information about really what's going on, you need to subpoena Todd Blanche and Kash Patel. After all, they're the ones behind that memo that said there's nothing else to see here. And it is Todd Blanche who said that we're not releasing any more documents despite the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
Former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Arenberg. Dave, thank you so much. Elise, certainly is the administration's best efforts to make the Epstein storyline go away. It won't. it will continue to dog them for as long as President Trump is in office. To give us your thoughts on that, and truthfully, I mean, with pretty significant setbacks for him on Friday at the hands of the judiciary.
Well, just look at how it's dogging Pam Bondi and has clouded her entire legacy, whatever that might have been. Epstein is going to be first and foremost at the forefront of how we think of her tenure as the top attorney general of the country. But, you know, looking at the different races around the country, this still has repercussions. You look at how it was. I mean, Thomas Massie, it was a big push on his part. And granted, there were other reasons that he got forced out of office and big outside money coming in, but he went against the president. He defied the president. And so you still see the Republicans the women who were willing to vote for this, and how Trump has challenged them and they have paid consequences.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's so much to dig into about this sort of semi-hearing on Friday. I mean, first of all, she's not under oath. Second of all, she was being represented by a Justice Department lawyer, which is completely unprecedented and insane. She doesn't work for the Justice Department. There's no reason why taxpayers should be paying for that. And of course, like, you know, it wasn't public. And so we're getting these like drips and drabs. She's clearly trying to rehabilitate her image. I mean, it's like the ultimate gaslighting to pass the buck and to say, oh, I was in charge, but I didn't really know. And all these people that were working for me did all this stuff that I didn't know. It just defies credulity, as have, you know, multiple rounds of these closed door interviews. It just same thing with Howard Lutnick. They want us to they think we're stupid, that we're not going to ask hard questions. The chances that Todd Blanche and Kash Patel are going to reveal anything meaningful, first of all, they're going to, I would bet money they will resist subpoenas until their dying day. So it is going to be a long time till we see any real consequences for this. But so much of the burden of this disaster, it absolutely sits squarely at Pam Bondi's feet, and it should be hung around her reputation for the rest of her career.
All right. Coming up on Morning Joe, we'll switch gears and turn to the war in Iran, and we'll talk about where things stand on a possible deal to end hostilities after the president held a meeting in the White House Situation Room on the matter late last week. Plus, a look at how Wall Street is shaping up as investors prepare to kick off a new trading week and month. That's right, June 1st. Morning Joe, coming right back. Welcome back. The United States and Iran exchanged renewed fire over the weekend as negotiations to end the war continue. U.S. Central Command announced it conducted what it once again called self-defense strikes on Iranian radar and command and control sites for drones. CENTCOM says the strikes were, quote, in response to aggressive Iranian actions that included the shootdown of a U.S. MQ-1 drone that was operating over international waters. The U.S. military responded by eliminating Iranian air defenses, a ground control station, and 2 one-way attack drones that it says posed clear threats to ships transiting regional waters. That's all according to CENTCOM. Iran's Revolutionary Guard, meanwhile, claims it launched a retaliatory strike, while Kuwait said it was intercepting incoming drone and missile fire. This all comes as Axios cites U.S. officials who say that during a Situation Room meeting on Friday, President Trump asked for several amendments to the deal that his envoys seemed to reach a few days earlier with their Iranian counterparts. The officials add that Trump does want a deal, but also wants to strengthen several points, particularly around Iran's nuclear material. Iran's foreign ministry says any deal with the U.S. must include guarantees for a ceasefire in Lebanon, where Israel has only escalated its attacks in recent days. Joining us now live from London, MS Now international reporter Inez de la Quintara. Inez, great to see you. Where does the situation stand this morning?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, so I mean, the ceasefire really being tested this morning. Lots of back and forth between Iran and the U.S. You mentioned it there, but over the weekend we heard from the U.S. that they had targeted Iranian military assets. CENTCOM saying that came in response to aggressive Iranian action in the region that included the downing of an American drone that was operating in international waters. CENTCOM went on to say that they had eliminated Iranian air defenses, a ground control station, and 2 one-way attack drones that posed clear threats to ships transiting regional waters. And then we heard from Iran's Revolutionary Guard that they had targeted American assets in the region, an air base that they say was used to attack southern Iran. They didn't specify which base, but in just the last hour, we heard from CENTCOM saying that this was an American base in Kuwait. They say the attack happened at 11 p.m. last night, that they intercepted 2 ballistic missiles, that there were no American service members that were harmed. Kuwait did also say that its air defenses were activated, that it intercepted Iranian missiles and drones, and it, of course, condemned the attack. Now, I will say we have been here before. We've seen the two sides trading blows before, and the ceasefire has held up. We saw a very similar situation just last Thursday. But, of course, as this continues, as the two sides continue to trade blows, there are questions as to, whether everything could just fall apart here. We know that negotiations are dragging on. There were reports that they had made good progress, that they were close to a deal late last week. And then we are seeing reports that President Trump has made edits to the final draft that his, or the latest draft that his envoys have negotiated. I will say Iranian state media is striking a bit of a different tone. So they're saying that no final deal has yet been reached. And when you look at the rhetoric coming from the two sides, it does appear that the kind of same sticking points, for the most part, remain. So, the issue of the Strait of Hormuz, the nuclear issue, which, of course, really matters to Americans, but that the Iranians seem reluctant to negotiate on, the issue of sanctions and frozen funds. Iranian state media reporting that Iran would get billions out of this deal, which obviously seems unlikely. And then Lebanon is the other big thing we're watching. The Israelis continuing to push deeper and deeper into Lebanon. They are now further than they've been in 26 years. The Israeli prime minister ordering fresh strikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut. And the Iranians have said that any lasting deal must include an end to the hostilities in Lebanon.
And as Elise Jordan here, so is your sense that the negotiations, given this kinetic activity and all of the sticking points with Iranian officials saying that they do not want anything about their nuclear program to be part of the negotiation, and Donald Trump coming with edits Friday in the Situation Room, wanting to have more specifics about the enriched uranium and how it would be taken and disposed of. Do you think that this is back to more of the same negotiation and back at the table?
So if you look at what the Iranians are saying just this morning, we heard from the spokesperson from the Iranian Foreign Ministry. He said in his weekly briefing that they are not discussing details related to the nuclear issue. So if that's the case, then we could be looking at just more of the same and the same sticking points, and this could continue to drag on. I think it's worth pointing out, of course, that from the Iranian side, there is a lot of mistrust. If you look at the rhetoric coming out of Iranian officials and Iranian state television, they feel that they were targeted twice while they were in the middle of negotiations with the U.S. So they from their perspective, they have no reason to really trust the U.S. here.
MS Now international reporter Inez Quintero reporting live from London. Inez, thank you so much. Let's now bring in CNBC's senior markets correspondent Dominic Chu. Dom, good to see you. Oil prices rising connected to this exchange of fire in the last few days.
Sure, Jonathan. So to Inez's and Elisa's point, that kinetic activity in the Middle East has led to a jump in oil prices. You're talking about 4% gains here overall, as you can see there now about 5 or 6%. So $92 per barrel roughly for U.S. benchmark crude prices, a little about $95, $96 for the international benchmark Brent crude. Now, all of this, of course, is just to put it in context, well off the wartime highs that we saw of nearly $120 per barrel in the early part of March for those U.S. benchmark prices. But this is still a very largely headline-driven market. So anything developing with regards to whether or not a ceasefire is in the offing and can continue, or whether or not there is more of that kinetic action in the Middle East is going to be a huge driver of what's happening. But I would say that U.S. markets right now are poised to open just modestly lower after hitting record high levels just on Friday. Now, from the big macro story in the markets to arguably the more influential driver of things right now, and that's artificial intelligence and that massive spending that goes along with it. According to SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son, the AI revolution will be 50 times greater than the dot-com revolution that defined an era in tech innovation. The Japanese investment conglomerate's chief tells CNBC it is, quote, the biggest revolution of technology and realization that mankind ever experienced. So this is just like the beginning of the internet. Those comments come on the heels of SoftBank announcing a roughly $87 billion investment in AI infrastructure and compute power in France. SoftBank, by the way, is now the biggest company in Japan after eclipsing auto giant Toyota in market value. That tech AI story has been a huge force in markets, with companies at the heart of the AI revolution powering markets not just here in America to record highs, but we also saw record highs in other places like Japan and South Korea as well. And from AI to the final frontier, the entire space industry is a huge focus for Wall Street as investors gear up for the highly anticipated IPO of Elon Musk's SpaceX. The soon-to-be publicly traded industry behemoth got some good news on the business front after landing a nearly $4.2 billion contract from the U.S. Space Force to help develop a new satellite-based program that can track and target airborne threats like missiles and drones. It's eventually seen as serving a key role in President Trump's Golden Dome missile defense shield initiative. SpaceX is expected to go public in just a couple weeks' time with a target valuation of, get this, $1.75 trillion. And at that valuation, it would theoretically be the 7th largest publicly traded company in the entire S&P 500. It would be above Elon Musk's Tesla and below computer chip giant Broadcom. So, Jonathan, a lot going on in space with regard to that big IPO. I'll send things back over to you guys.
All right, CNBC's Dominic Chu. Dom, thanks for covering so much ground for us. We appreciate it. Still ahead here on Morning Joe, we're going to go through a new controversy involving Senate candidate Graham Plattner of Maine. Something his wife revealed to campaign officials nearly a year ago is now making headlines. Morning Joe is coming right back with that. Welcome back. Graham Plattner, the presumptive Democratic nominee looking to unseat Senator Susan Collins' Maine, is facing yet another controversy this morning. Over the weekend, both the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times released reports that Plattner had exchanged sexually explicit text messages with several women while married. Plattner's actions were first brought to the attention of the campaign last year by his wife, Amy Gertner, who worried what would happen if they were made public. The Times writes that Genevieve McDonald, a former state legislator who was the Plattner campaign's political director before leaving in October, said that Gertner reached out just days before a big Labor Day rally with Senator Bernie Sanders and was concerned that her husband's behavior could become a political liability. The messages were confirmed by the campaign, and a representative for Plattner said he has since stopped and that he and his wife are in counseling. Gertner posted a video statement on social media in which she defended her husband.
I find it really shameful that there's a group of media outlets and people who are willing to spread gossip instead of talking about real issues that Graham is running on. Graham and I have a great marriage. Being married is hard. Being newly married is hard. I think it's shameful behavior to spend time and energy and resources on negative ads and negative stories on Graham.
This controversy is the latest in a campaign that has seen Plattner being forced to respond to things like old offensive posts on Reddit to a Nazi-style tattoo. Democratic leaders seem split on the candidate. Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California standing by Plattner, writing on social media on Saturday that he looks forward to their scheduled campaign event. But others, like Senator Cory Booker, are worried of the impact on the party's chances to retake the Senate.
Yeah, I have concerns. That guy has questions to answer, and that's what campaigns are for. I know that so much is riding on Democrats taking control of the Senate, that this election, if we do not get the votes necessary to take care of the House and the Senate, we will continue to have an out-of-control president.
So, Elise, Plattner's campaign has showed a remarkable resiliency to this point, right? I mean, he dispatched a pretty popular sitting governor, Governor Mills, in the primary. And polls have him up on Susan Collins. Now, we should note, polls in Maine, traditionally unreliable. And Susan Collins is nothing if not a survivor. At the very least, we can say this is another real headache for the party.
Graham Plattner is clearly a very talented retail politician. But the problem is his judgment, which he clearly has been lacking in as an adult. It's one thing to have foolish, youthful indiscretions, but I'm sorry, you cannot get past. It is not a Nazi-style tattoo. It is the tattoo of concentration camp guards. It is the very worst tattoo you can get if you are getting anything Nazi, and that's a pretty high bar there. So this has been a slow motion train wreck ever since that tattoo and knowledge of it hit the world. And it's only going to get worse. These texts, there are multiple women. Are all those women going to keep their mouths shut from now until Election Day? What do you think, Lauren?
Well, right. And I mean, it's a little, I certainly appreciate his wife wanting to stand up for him. But I mean, come on, it's politics. What do you think is going to happen? Of course, everything is fair game. And of course, people's character and their behavior and their treatment of women matters. And is there a double standard in the parties? 100% there is, because of, I don't even have to begin to explain the double standards when it comes to the president of the United States. But Democrats have been trying to take the moral high ground and to run candidates that don't have these kinds of deep moral and personal problems. And by the way, it was a long shot to begin with to think that Democrats were going to take out Susan Collins. She's been there since 1996. The polls are wrong every single cycle. She has extraordinary resilience. And by the way, she knows the district incredibly well. She has served the people of Maine. Like her or not, Democrats dream of taking her out. I didn't think it was especially realistic to begin with, regardless of who was running. And now you have this very problematic guy. And I will say, as a Democrat, I find it really problematic when we stand by people who do not, who do not pass muster when it comes to some basic judgment and moral values, and we stand by them because they're on our side. How is that different than Republicans doing the same thing? I find it really problematic.
It's also going to be really fascinating to watch how the parties decide to deploy resources. For instance, Texas now is going to become much more expensive. Republicans are going to have to divert money to Texas that maybe they could have used in Maine for Collins. We will have to see. But it is one thing is clear. The Senate appears to be a true toss-up as we sit here on June 1st. All right, coming up next on Morning Joe, it's been 1 year since a firebomb attack in Boulder, Colorado, on a group gathered in support of Israeli hostages in Gaza. The CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, is going to join us to discuss the aftermath of that day and how members of the Jewish community are feeling a year later. Morning Joe, we'll be right back. One year ago today, a man firebombed a group of demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado, who had gathered in support of Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza. Authorities say the man yelled "Free Palestine" as he threw 2 Molotov cocktails toward the group. An 82-year-old woman named Karen Diamond died as a result of the injuries she suffered during that terrible assault, and at least a dozen other people were hurt. Last month, the attacker pleaded guilty to a slate of state charges and was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. During that court proceeding, an attendee of the event last year said this: "When I'm alone and close my eyes, I can vividly see Karen's body in flames." Karen's sons wrote in a letter, quote, "We learned the full meaning of the expression living in hell." Joining us now, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan, good to see you. We sadly are making a habit of this, where you have been on the show commemorating the anniversary of a terrible incident of anti-Semitic violence, in this case death, this horrible firebombing. What are your thoughts a year later?
Look, I think the death of Karen Diamond, an 82-year-old grandmother, when she was, again, marching is a generous way of describing it, she was walking around a park. I mean, I literally went to Boulder the day after it happened. I saw where it happened. I stood there with Governor Polis. It's sad. An 82-year-old woman is not exactly a hardened political activist. And the idea of showing solidarity with people being held in tunnels and dungeons under the ground should not be controversial. Now, the truth is that this reflects the broader trend of anti-Semitism. As you said, Jonathan, we've been talking here on your show for years. We've seen the acts of violence increase. We've seen the anti-Jewish attitudes harden. And so I think it's a moment where many in our community are frankly worried in ways they haven't been in a long, long time.
For someone watching at home, whether they be Jewish or not, what would your advice be? Like, what is something that they could do, a small act that someone could do to try to bring the temperature down?
Look, first and foremost, I think so many of us have Jewish people in our lives as family, friends, coworkers, colleagues. Just reach out, send a text, give a call, say, just check in with people. Checking in really matters and helps. And I think Jewish people right now feel very alienated. They feel very alone. Like, to go to synagogue, you're going through a phalanx of armed guards. It's crazy. It's not normal. You should have to negotiate a police presence just to worship. So I simply think the act of checking in can go a long way.
So, Jonathan, obviously we've talked about this so much over the years, and so many people in our community feel just deeply pained about the current state, and we all know the statistics, and we feel the reality of this heightened tension, and yet there is also this sense that what's happened in Israel has made it so much harder for Jews in the diaspora around the world. My mother will often say nobody's done more to reinforce anti-Semitism than Netanyahu. It's such a difficult tension, especially against the background of the march yesterday, which was so joyous, the Israel Day parade. But there is this incredible tension among those of us, who really oppose the Netanyahu administration, so much of what's happened there, and then yet this just incredibly unacceptable surge in anti-Semitism. How do you reconcile those? How do you talk about those with people in ways that help, to Jonathan's point, bring the temperature down and reset?
It's a really good question, Lauren. I think it's on a lot of people's minds. I think the reality is that you can have strong feelings about the Netanyahu government, but obviously it doesn't excuse the man in Boulder who said, I want to kill all Zionists, right? But I have strong feelings about Beijing and their policies toward minorities, but I wouldn't attack Chinese people. I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin, but I would never think of vandalizing a Russian Orthodox church. Frankly, you may or may not like this current administration, but when I show up for a July 4th, event, as I will in a month, that doesn't mean I endorse President Trump anymore. I endorse Democrats. So I think only Jews are held to this double standard, where they are said, hey, wait a second. I want to understand, where do you show up on this geopolitical issue? And therefore, then I'll make a decision about how I feel about you as a person, as an American.
Doesn't matter, because our Jewish identity supersedes whatever we may think politically.
So here's the thing, right? Karen Diamond, that man who said he wanted to kill all Zionists, he didn't ask her, what's your opinion about Bibi? He burned an 82-year-old woman alive.
Right.
Now, it's so interesting to build on something you said. I marched yesterday here in New York City for this Israel Day parade. There are more than 50,000 people marching, waving American flags, waving Israeli flags. There were religious people and secular people. There were left-wing people, I could tell, and there were right-wing people. Governor Hochul marched. Speaker Menon marched. Jesse Tisch marched. By the way, there were Jews and non-Jews who marched. So I think there's a way to celebrate who we are as a Jewish people and just honor that without saying I endorse this policy or this leader.
We don't have much time, but really quickly, to what do you ascribe the rise in, I hate to say this, a more accepting attitude by the public of Nazi symbols?
I know, Elise, you were just talking about Graham Platt in the last segment. It was unbelievable. I think we've seen anti-Semitism go from being mainstreamed to normalized, now institutionalized. And I think we need to draw a line and say it is not okay. So again, I wish the mayor had showed up yesterday, like all of the mayors who previously have been in City Hall. He didn't. But I think we should call out people with Nazi symbols, no matter what party they're for. I think we should call out when Thomas Massey accused his opponent of being from Tel Aviv or taking orders from Tel Aviv. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, hate is hate, anti-Semitism is wrong, and I think trying to couch it or disguise in political language does a disservice to all of us.
Because you brought up the mayor, we should note that he said, he disagrees with some of the policies of Israel. There were some far-right representatives of the government there. He chose not to attend personally, but he did, as you noted, send the police commissioner in his stead. CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan, thank you for being with us this morning. Coming up, many in the Northeast reported hearing a loud boom over the weekend. We'll tell you what scientists are saying was behind it. That's next here on Morning Joe. Welcome back. A little sports to close out the show. There will be a new French Open singles champion in both the men's and women's tournaments. Marta Katsiuk of Ukraine is into the quarterfinals after ruining Iga Swiatek's 25th birthday, upsetting the four-time champion in straight sets yesterday, which followed the end of American Coco Gauff's title defense on Saturday. Meanwhile, Novak Djokovic final at that same time, defeating Arsenal. PSG went back-to-back, winning this time around in penalty kicks. All right, time now for a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning. There's been a promising breakthrough in pancreatic cancer treatment, as researchers say an experimental pill nearly doubled survival time for patients who had stopped responding to treatment. In a 500-patient study, those taking the new pill lived a median of 13 months, compared with just under 7 months for chemotherapy patients. Experts call it a major step forward in fighting one of the deadliest forms of cancers. Meanwhile, a loud boom heard across Massachusetts and parts of the Northeast Saturday afternoon was caused by a meteor around 3 feet wide that entered Earth's atmosphere. That's according to the American Meteor Society. Witnesses from Delaware all the way up to Montreal reported hearing a double boom, feeling ground shaking, or seeing a bright fireball around 2:11 p.m. Experts say the meteor likely burned up before reaching the ground. Officials received numerous reports but say there was no public safety threat and no related emergency incidents. And finally, Andrew Lloyd Webber went from writing the music to scratching the records this weekend. During Friday's Broadway performance of Cats, the Jellicle Ball, Webber made a surprise appearance in the DJ booth under the name DJ Webbs, W-E-B-Z. The show recently earned 9 Tony nominations, including Best Revival of a Musical, and has been extended at the Broadhurst Theater through January 2027. The Tony Awards will be held this Sunday. We've had so many of the nominees on the show this year, Elise. We wish them luck.
That looks like so much fun. I really want to go to that revival.
Yeah, and well, you've got more time now, extended to January. It's really been a terrific year on Broadway. Elise, thanks so much. That does it for us this morning. Thank you for watching. We, of course, will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern for more Morning Joe. Don't forget, we have former First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, joining us. Ariel Ruscha picks up MS Now's live coverage right now.
Right now on Ana Cabrera reports, strikes and counterstrikes, the United States and Iran trading new attacks over the last 12 hours as President Trump weighs a possible deal with Tehran.
There are places on this planet that no map will show you. Places so dangerous, so secret, or so sacred that even locals refuse to enter. Some were poisoned by governments. Some guard ancient mysteries. Some are protected by creatures that will kill you before you take a second step. These are the 10 most forbidden villages on Earth. Number 1, Pripyat, Ukraine. In 1986, this was a thriving Soviet city, home to 50,000 people. Children played in its parks. Families filled its apartment blocks. Then, on April the 26th, reactor number 4 at Chernobyl exploded. 3 kilometers away, within 36 hours, every single resident was evacuated. None of them ever came back. Today, Pripyat sits silent. Buildings rot. Radiation levels in parts of the exclusion zone remain so high that even a brief visit causes measurable cellular damage. The government posts armed checkpoints. Unauthorized entry is a criminal offense. Scientists estimate that parts of this city will not be safe for human habitation for another 24,000 years. Number 2, North Sentinel Island, 50 square miles of jungle in the Bay of Bengal, home to the Sentinelese, a tribe that has had zero contact with the outside. bow at the outer gate, but the mystery at its heart belongs to eternity. Number 5. Gruinard Island, off the northwest coast of Scotland. During World War II, British scientists came to this remote island with one purpose: to test anthrax bombs. They detonated the bombs above live sheep. Every single animal was dead within days. The anthrax spores embedded themselves into the soil and stayed there. The British government posted warning signs and formally declared the island off-limits for 48 years. In 1990, they attempted decontamination, using over 280 tons of formaldehyde. Scientists still warn anthrax spores can remain active in soil for over 100 years. Even now, locals stay far away. Number 6. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, Norway, deep inside a frozen mountain in the Arctic. At nearly 80 degrees north latitude, humanity keeps its backup plan. Over 1.3 million seed samples, one from almost every food crop on Earth. Designed to survive nuclear war, pandemic collapse, asteroid impact, even catastrophic sea level rise. Access is strictly forbidden to the public. The vault is guarded, monitored around the clock, and buried inside permafrost engineered to remain frozen even if all power fails permanently. You will never go inside. But inside those frozen walls, life itself waits, patient, silent, ready. Number 7. Ilha da Queimada Grande, Brazil, 100 kilometers off the coast of São Paulo. And the Brazilian Navy has made it illegal for any civilian to set foot there. The reason? Snakes. An estimated 4,000 golden lan